Okay, I'm going to be shooting from the hip. Okay, so this is for fat men with wives. So, first, before you initiate the listening and consideration of this entire video, um, take a pen and paper or your smartphone and record all the reasons or excuses you have for staying fat, or just as fat as you are for the next 6 months. Okay, have some notion of the alibis you have surrounding whatever lifestyle practices get you to keep colliding into problems relating to metabolic function. All right, here we go. This is a bit of a thought experiment, and I think it's kind of an urgent one for a lot of people. So imagine it's been an evening off of work. You're sleeping on the couch downstairs after a rare night with the boys. You know, you've cracked open a few cold ones, and you're in a heavy sleep, okay? Upstairs, there's your wife, and she's sleeping peacefully. So, you're not prepared for this, but imagine that a deranged, muscular psychopath breaks into your home, okay? You suddenly hear a crash at your family room window. Within seconds, your wife is screaming. You can't even comprehend what's happening, but you feel your whole body is jerked forward as if propelled by heaven to the voice of your trembling, frightened wife. And you don't have time to grab a weapon, so you just turn on a bedroom light while running toward her. And wrestling ensues between you and this giant guy, and he's clearly experienced. So after, a few seconds of exhausted, frantic movements between the two of you, eventually the psycho pins you to the floor and tells you that his goons are showing up, and within about 40 seconds, 3 armed masked men show up, okay? Internally, you feel nothing but chaos, and, you're feeling a mix between anger and hopelessness, okay? Now, these men grab your wife, and she shakes and screams and cries with fear. It's a terrible situation. This is the worst thing you've ever dealt with. Okay, you've come close to death at least a couple times, and this is way worse than anything else you've dealt with. And basically, after a moment, they settle down. She stops crying as much. The guy who has you pinned to the floor doesn't say very much, but they're just sort of murmuring certain things to each other, okay? You're incredibly tense, you're incredibly angry, you're incredibly scared. Your wife is obviously distraught, she can't even comprehend what's going on. And she hasn't stopped crying. All she can do is cry in this situation, okay? This is a truly terrible situation. Now, that being said, at a certain point, the psycho gets off of you and he tells you that if you want your wife to live, then you will have to lose, say, 40 pounds in the next 3 months. Okay? Now refer back to that list of excuses and reasons you have regarding why you can't lose weight. And then ask yourself, if somebody really puts your loved one in danger, and if you don't love your wife, just think of someone doing this to your kids, right? Is there going to be something in you that still rationalizes a comfort zone that hurts you and therefore hurts others? I was reflecting on some of my ignoble habits, particularly toward secretly buying and eating sweets rather than more health-conscious food products when I'm at work. And I couldn't help but think, like, if someone put a gun to the head of a woman I loved, would I really be so weak and such a little bitch? I think the answer is clearly no. I would stand down and shut the hell up, swallow my pride, and I would save her goddamn life, okay? So, keeping this in mind is crucial. You think you're not capable of solving the problem related to your weight, or maybe any other habit you're failing at. But that's because your sort of inner hero has not been given a chance to be summoned. And you can actually set up motivational structures in your life so that you have to, say, give a certain amount of money to a charity or an organization that you absolutely hate to your core, okay? In case you fail at a certain goal. So if you're swallowing up this culture that obsessively talks about trauma and, personal shortcomings and how, nobody can be held responsible for certain things because, we know not what we do. You have to keep in mind that, like, inside every man, there is, like, a crazy bastard. There is a psychotically devoted altruist. There is even something that wants to be like Jesus, dare I say it. And it isn't until your back is against the wall and something happens to someone you love that you're going to discover what you're really capable of. But you don't have to end up in this kind of terrible situation in order to set up reward and punishment systems that make it so that you attain a great reward for success and a great maybe penalty for failure in something that's clearly going to help you in the long run. Okay. Sorry if this was a bit too serious, but I've been meaning to make a video on this illustration for maybe about a week now, so just don't lose sight of the fact that you're capable of heroic feats, regardless of what you're accustomed to. In the right situation, you will feel a fire light your entire body ablaze and energize you into a state of pure ice-cold selflessness, okay? So, thank you for watching and have a good day, and God bless you.